All right, the printed material for today's webinar, since there is no handout or attached document, I mean, we do have a document for it. It's just we're not attaching it to the Zoom webinar page. But if you want to print that, this is the printed material that I am using for the webinar event today. We're going to open up our Resource Center page on, you're going to go to www.churchwindows.com, hover over Customer Support, go to Resource Center, and as we scroll down here, we will find the section called Payroll 1099 Filing Instructions. Let me draw some focus here. Right here, 1099 Filing Instructions for Payroll. Okay, and then if we click on that, then we see right up here 1099 Filing Instructions. Here, this is the document that I am using for today's event. All right, so you may want to, while we're, before we get started here, go to churchwindows.com, get that document and use that. Or if you're not, then you can always come back and watch the video later with regards to that and try to match that up with what we're doing here. I'm going to leave the browser page open. I may be back here. All right, so we're back to Church Windows. So we're again talking about 1099 web filings, processing, printing, what have you. Really, we're going to be talking about printing the 1099 forms today. So the first thing that's important to understand is the 1099 forms can be printed from either payroll or accounting depending on where the contractor payments were posted. Okay, if the contractors were paid under, say, accounts payable in accounting, then the 1099 forms will be processed in accounting or printed from accounting. If the contractors were paid or posted through payroll, then the 1099 NEC forms are going to be processed for those contractors in payroll. There's no crossover on it, essentially, folks. So you can't pay the contractors through payroll and then print the forms through accounting, and vice versa. Can't pay them in accounting and then expect to process the forms through payroll. Okay. If you have, now this is kind of a lead into the webinar event tomorrow. If you have contractors that were paid in accounting and some that were paid in through payroll, those can be merged and e-filed or printed together. Okay, so everything appears on one 1096 form. Okay, if you're in that position, then please join us for the webinar tomorrow on merging 1099s, and you can find that registration link on our website. Okay, like our W-2s and W-3s, I just did a video on that last week on the processing or printing of W-2s, W-3s. 1099 forms and the 1096 will be printed or e-filed through our documents partner vendor, Aatrix e-file. Okay? We don't have any other method of being able to e-file, folks. So if you're needing to e-file, again, don't forget there's the government minimum of 10 forms, right? 10 total combined forms, meaning not 10 W-2s or 1099s, total of 10 forms. So if you have 11 or 10 1099s and W-2s combined, the government requires that you e-file. All right. If you do not e-file and you send in those forms or mail in the 1099s and 1096s to the forms and you've got more than 10 totals, W-2s as well, you could be assessed some pretty severe penalties. All right. So while we understand that e-filing with Aatrix, budget concerns are always an issue, the penalties can be into the several hundreds of dollars per employee or payee that you were filing for when you're looking at $27.99 for filing W-2s and $27.99 upwards of that for doing your 1099s and W-2s. So there's separate charges, of course, okay? So just letting you know that the penalties are pretty steep, at least that's what the government says, if you do not e-file and you send them in and you have more than those 10 forms. So anyway, I'm going to leave that at that. All right. Okay, so next step is the first thing, and the next most important thing is before you begin processing the forms, it doesn't matter whether it's in payroll or in accounting, you've got to make sure that the contractor information is correct, okay? That it's all up to date. You've got the appropriate address information. You've got the appropriate tax ID information entered, likely their social security number, maybe an EIN, but you have to tell the software that that's the case. So if we go into payroll, and this is now starting to look at our document here on page 1, we go to employees, contractors. We uncheck the employee box here in the upper left corner right here. We uncheck that. When that box is unchecked, then all we are seeing are our contractors. So we have Joe Greenthumb as contractor 1. Then we go to next and we've got Joe Snow from Joe Below Snow Removal. Those are second contractor. So when we click on each one of these, we notice down here, tax ID. Let me get my highlighter again, tax ID, and type of tax or TIN, all right? So you've got to pay attention to that and look at that. So if, like in this case, Social Security number, most of them are probably going to be Social Security numbers, but maybe you'll have the rare EIN, but you choose the appropriate tax ID number and then enter the the number accordingly. I think it's basically a difference in formatting, but make sure you have that. If you do not have this information in either payroll or accounting, you will not be able to process the 1099 for the contractor. Aatrix simply will not permit that to occur. If we now go back to Joe Greenthumb, we've got his Social Security number entered and TIN identified, and both of these vendors do have addresses. So we should have no problems with either of these vendors. When you have contractors that are being paid through accounting, okay, you'll need to go into accounting. We need to make sure that we are in the year that the forms are being processed for, okay? So if I'm paying my contract or printing the forms for my contractors for the year of 24, I have to make sure to check this information. I'm in the actual physical accounting year of 2024. We can see clearly that I am. If you're not, then you're of course going to go up to special functions, manage years, change to another year, and come back into 24. Why is this important? Well, because each year's chart of accounts is different. So entering that information, say in your chart of accounts in 2025, it's not going to retroactively copy that data backwards into 2024, okay? You can bring the data forward into a future year, but you've got to go back and make sure it's there. If you go, oh, it's not, I get this call all the time, is I've entered my contractor information and it's not appearing when I'm trying to print their 1099s or their 1099 forms, and we come in and they've only entered it in 25, they haven't entered that information in the accounting year of 24. So if we go back into manage accounts and we find one of our vendors, let's find Michelle Russell. Here she is. We go to the vendor payee tab, got her name, DBA, got her address entered, and we do not have a tax ID. So I would need to get that tax ID, and again, type of ID here is again Social Security number EIN. So we would need to get that appropriate information entered, and so we can get that vendor, process that form, okay? So I think this has got to enter these dashes in here. I do. So assuming, that's there, I've got the ID, it saves it automatically in accounting. My next vendor that I'm paying or that I'm printing forms for is Weber Family Singers. So same thing, go to vendor payee, do have tax ID for that. Maybe my name DBA here can be the vendor who I'm paying or printing the form for. The account name is Weber Family Singers, but the software populates it with that in the name or DBA until I change it. So I want to make sure that's correct. So I'm going to make that John Weber, okay, because that's who the actual leader of that is, or that group, or the one that's filing, or is being assessed the income for that. So I've now entered that information and saved it. Okay, it saves it automatically here in accounting. There is no save on the screen. So that we've now ensured that all of our information in our database is here ready for us to be able to process our forms. Okay. You may need to update your account details into 25. If you haven't brought that forward, you can do that by simply going up to, if I go up to special functions, change my year back into 2025. I can now go back to special functions, manage years, and recopy chart of accounts. And right here, choose the option update 2025 accounting details from 24. Okay. If I do that, it should bring forward that now updated contractor information into 2025, and assuming then that I, copy my chart of accounts forward year by year, that information is going to be brought forward with that, okay? So I just click update balances. It says, are you sure you want to replace accounting details? Click yes. It's now updated both Michelle and Weber Family Singers with that information. Okay, so let's talk about processing our W-2s now, okay? So that we go up to, I can do this from 25, folks, as well, right? Because the software, there are no tax forms essentially, or at least end-of-year tax forms or tax filing forms for 25 yet. I don't have to change the year back. The Aatrix system knows that I'm processing it based on the year of 24. So I go up to reports, and right here to my little Uncle Sam across the top, tax. It now takes a few seconds. This process of updating or bringing in the forms takes a little bit longer. I think they've changed something about their interface this year. So this, you just have to be patient. If you're getting the message, you might, that you can't, you might need to run the Aatrix update from the partner page on our website. If I go down here and bring up my browser, right up here under more, our partners, if you're having any problems, go down here to the left to Aatrix e-file, click the updates link in the upper right-hand corner here. Let me steer some focus right here. There's the updates. When I click on that, it now jumps down to the Church Windows update. I click on that. I run that application. That then should fix any issues that I've got with Aatrix, okay? So here we are back in Church Windows again. On our form selection, it's looking at 24/5 now, so I have to choose the year of 24. Here are all of my 1099 forms. I'm now going to choose 1099 SEC, and then click print, and the reporting period can be left as any. You don't have to do anything about that. Just leave that as any. No date needs to be selected. Just simply go to print. Now, this is one of the things that makes this different from Payroll. Payroll exclusively records everything that was paid to them. I don't have this option in Payroll, okay? But basically, here's John Weber and Michelle Russell, my two contractors that I'm generating 1099s for 24. Shows their tax ID information, great. Shows their names, wonderful. Amount paid. If this amount, for any reason, is different or wrong, it can be adjusted here in this column to the far right called adjusted amount. Okay, right here. Adjusted amount. This, and folks are probably thinking here, well, why would I need to enter an adjusted amount for one of my contractors? Well, maybe I had reimbursed them for something that they had done or bought or purchased that would not be considered taxable income or reportable income, but it's still included as part of the amount that's paid to them for the year. So all I have to do is go over here and enter the amount accordingly, and that's the amount that I'm saying I want to print on, if memory serves correctly, line 7 on the 1099. Okay, so from here now, I simply click OK, and it now begins the processing portion of the 1099s for these two particular contractors, okay? Now again, this is just looking at these contractors for that are paid in accounting. This is not looking at any contractors that I paid through Payroll. Again, if I've got contractors in both databases, again, I strongly recommend that you register for the event and join us for the webinar event that we're hosting on that tomorrow. So here now it's opening up, and it's bringing in our, opening up our processing page for processing the 1099 forms, okay? So here's the page that it starts our processing for the 1099s, okay? So here I would just click next and process this from here, but we're not going to do this here. I'm going to show you from this point on, this process is the same whether we're processing them in payroll, accounting, or payroll, all right? So I'm going to now cancel out of here, and we're going to jump out of accounting, and we're going to go into payroll now, and we're going to process the forms from there. Okay, so if I go back up to reports and export, tax reports, tax forms, now we're opening up basically the forms list from Aatrix. The difference here is that I have all of my tax forms, W-2s, W-3, 1099s, 941s. I've got them all, unlike accounting where I can only process 1099 forms. So I choose 24, and here's all of my forms. Okay, so here again, I would choose my 1099 NEC. One of the things we don't, like I said before, is that the 1099s in payroll are only accruing or accumulating. You're going to show what was paid through payroll. I don't have the ability, I won't have the window come up that allows me to enter an adjusted amount for my payroll contractors. So you may need to check that amount or edit it at the Aatrix spreadsheet when you get to that screen. Okay, so here I would choose to that 2024 1099. Again, any reporting period is fine. Click print. It's going to take a minute here again, like it did in accounting before. We just have to be patient until it opens up the actual form, the document or the page that we just saw in the accounting module of, do you want to do the draft? Do you want to try the, do you want to try the test drive right here, test drive for 25 of your recipients or all of them, or no thanks, start processing my 1099s and 1096s. Okay, so here now, this is the very first screen. And so like I said, from this point on, whether I'm processing them in accounting or in payroll, the steps are exactly the same. Okay, so I go to next, verify my tax ID number, next. I know I'm using a single data file for this company. Again, tomorrow we'll cover how to use, yes, I have use multiple data files, but today we're only using single. No, next. So now it's requiring that I enter the contact information. I'm sorry, folks, I should have covered that before. Let's cancel out of that. So right up here is where that contact information is entered. So if I want to enter this here, if I want this to show up, I've got to get that entered here. So, and that will now populate that at any time I come in here. I can enter title, an address, phone number, but in terms of that, the address information is already brought in based on the church's information. This is a different screen than the contact company info and accounting. So you may need to go into accounting, and when you're at the tax forms, again, click the contact company info and enter that contact name and email address. So let's go back, start again. And now it should populate with my name and email now. Okay. So again, we just have to be patient while it's populating with the required information. So again, because again, they're two different databases. So the contact company info in either accounting or in payroll is going to be could be different, and the software sees it as such. That's why you have to make sure you're entering it correctly in both places. So no thanks, start processing my 1099s, 1096. Click next. Verify my payer tax identification number. It's correct. I cannot change it here. If I need to, I would have to close out of it and go back to my organization info and correct that. It's just asking us to verify it. It's right. So we go to next. Here's no, use my single data file for this company. Notice now it's populating everything I need. I do like to point out, folks, that the system, if you have punctuation and anything to do with the address information, you have to take that out here. It will not permit you to proceed if you have periods or dots in anything here, and you can just manually edit that and then click next. So I go to next. I am filing for my company employer. 99% of you will choose that. Most of you don't have or won't be using a third-party paid tax preparer. But if they are, you can choose that. Next, not using a transfer agent. Okay, again, just read the text if you want to know what that is. We're not doing that, so we're going to next. Verifying state tax information, nothing in red here. So if there were something in red, I would have to fix it before it would allow me to proceed. So we're now going to just go to next. I have no special state or local tax items. We're going to go to next. I have no recipients who are electing to receive a 1099 form electronically. So we're going to click next. How do we want to list the tax IDs or the Social Security numbers? All of these are legal, folks, whatever you choose, but most folks will do no truncation. I'm going to change my RINs to leave them blank. Next. Now it's opening up into the Aatrix spreadsheet. Okay. Takes again a few seconds to do this, but it will open up in here momentarily. Shouldn't take long. I don't have a whole lot of I've only got 2 contractors here. So here's our review and edit and preparing employee details. So what are my steps? Review and edit, print copy, and print report submission. I cannot show the message again if I want. Okay, and here are my 2 contractors. Okay, so at this point, it's going to be doing a double check on the system for you and what you have entered. You just have to click the next button right up here at the very top, right here, next, and just basically look for any messages that are coming up. Okay, so you'll get a box here in the middle that'll come up if it detects that there's something wrong. So if I now click next, and it just moves across the bottom here left to right, next, and I just keep clicking next. And if you notice the blue bar here in the upper right corner, it's detecting, it says there's individual recipient records with identical information. We're just going to click OK on that. It removes whatever the problem is. Again, what I'm talking about right up here is this verify recipient names. This bar right here is what the system is basically the progress that it's telling us. Okay, so I just keep clicking next. And notice the blue bar continues to move to the right. For those of you that are paying contractors in accounting, we don't have the last name and first name separated. Okay, you're going to have to key in those names of those folks. It's going to bark at you. It's going to bring up a message that says, hey, you've got to go back and correct this. And while it may show the company name here, okay, I can enter that. So I can put this in here. So if I put in maybe Joe Green Thumb Landscaping, I can enter that here if I want, right? So notice it's allowing me to do that. And the same thing is true in accounting because it's not separated. Those will be blank when you process the forms in accounting. So you'll have to key in at least first and last name for the recipients. Okay. And when I go to next, I just keep going next. When it gets to the end, it now pops up and says, this is your final opportunity to review or edit employee detail for the upcoming reports. Click double check and go back, or print agree, and we're done. I'm good. I verified everything. I'm set. So I'm going to click agree. Now, this is opening up really Aatrix page here. I mean, it's been there from the spreadsheet to this, but this is them trying to sell you something. You can. It says next to view all your filing options, and that's what we're going to do. You can also enroll down here in the bottom left corner if you're wanting to e-file with them. But when we click next, this is your actual 1099 print and filing options. Okay? It defaults to the complete e-file here in the upper left corner. All right? So basically for my 2 employees, it would be at least a minimum of $27.99. That's their minimum. Right here's the button. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to my other options down here. That's the one I want to choose. At least that's the one I want to show you. Okay? So when I choose other options, notice it allows me to print recipient 1099. I can e-file, but again, it's a minimum of $27.99, but I'm going to uncheck e-file federal and state. I'm now going to choose print. It's going to tell me about some, remind me that there's some requirements about federal filings to remain compliant, and then state, and it's going to bark at me about that too. I can still just click OK through these. No charge in the bottom right. Okay. Here now, I can simply go to next. Again, I don't have to do any check any boxes here. I can just simply go to next. Okay, so we're going to have to just be patient here while this does this. So it brings these up, it's generating the form, and this is the most important part of this, folks. I can't stress this enough. Right up here, this yellow banner across the top left, tells you everything you need to know about the forms that you're printing. Notice, it says Report 1 of 5, Federal 1099-NEC. So this is the copy that I'll send to the government with my 1096. It's the old format, 3 per page. Don't need the forms, can all be printed to plain paper. We now go to print final at the top. It says red paper is no longer required. Great, insert plain paper now. Okay, send it to my printer. Wait, grab it off the printer, make sure that it printed successfully. Okay, then I'm going to go to next step. Again, notating now document 2 of 5. This is the Federal 1096 form. So the previous form, I would have gotten my Post-it note flag out, Post-it note, what have you. I'd write on there Federal 1099s. Okay, stick it on that document or those forms. Send this to my printer, print final. Again, no longer requiring red forms, put in plain paper. Okay, print it. Okay, grab it off the printer. Don't respond to, don't click next step until I've grabbed it off the printer and it's rendered presentable. Cancel. I grab my Post-it flags again or Post-it note, right on there, Federal 1096, and stick it on the form. Now I'm ready to go to next step. Recipient 1099 takes again a few seconds. It's generating a separate page for each contractor. So here's Joe Greenthumb. He's all on one page. Page 2 is my snow removable guy. So again, I click print final. It says please insert 4-part perforated forms. You don't need that, folks. You can, if you have them, use those, but there's no requirement to do so. Okay, so I click OK. I now send it to my printer again, wait until I've grabbed it off the printer, determine that the forms are good. And once they are, I go to next step again. So again, you see here there's a consistency between toggling between print final and next step. Again, getting out my Post-it flag, Post-it note, put it on right recipients 1099s, and then again, payer, this is the church's record copy, print final. Again, printed to plain paper, grab it off the printer. Next final step, next step, goes to the 1099 NEC instructions. If my understanding is correct, folks, you are obligated or required by law to include a copy of this with each one of the 1099s you send to your recipients. So again, print final, okay, grab it off the printer. You can either print them here or you can print one and run it through a copier printer if you wish. It's your choice. And then I'm going to click print next step one final time. So if you've chosen to e-file, it would then now kick you into Aatrix system for you to log in and into their system and actually complete the e-file process. Okay, we're not doing that. We're just going to click next step. It now takes us back to our tax forms page and brings us back up to our 1099 history and shows what we completed. Here's where I can correct them, e-file or print incomplete. I have no incomplete. I can reprint completed forms, start over, what have you. But as far as 2024 is now concerned regarding 1099s, I'm done. I simply close out of this, and it now takes me back to my tax forms list, and it's now placed the 1099s NEC here into my history list, listed right here on the upper right. Again, folks, the history is really important. You've got to complete the filing of or processing of those and get to that page because, if in another, year or 2 years or 3 years down the road, you get something from the IRS or from the Social Security Administration, or an employee needs something, you can come back to the history list and print these. Okay. This is one of the reasons why we've taken on Aatrix, is because they keep the forms that we could not in our old version of payroll. So, there is a reason why we've taken them on. It may seem like there's a lot more complexity to it, but they ensure that you're protected, whether you're printing the forms or you're e-filing with them. And so, again, I know many of you only do this once a year, but, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, okay? And just keep in mind, again, you've got a limit of 10 total prints that if you process it 10 times, then you'll have reached the limit. But as long as you don't complete the processing of it, you can come in and do this again if you need to, okay? But if I come back in here and choose 1099 NEC for 24 and click print, it'll bring me back to that page where I was before, asking me, hey, I already see there's something posted here or processed. What do you want to do? Okay. So it might, again, it's taken a few seconds to do that. All right, let's wait till that comes up. It's going into the history list and it's pulling out this information in there because it sees that it was completed. And the same thing would occur if you did it in accounting as well. Okay, so it's doing it's working here, but it's now going to bring this up, and it's going to bring up that same page that I left off when I finished the processing before. Should be come up. There it is. So it tells me right where I was before. So it gives me my available options should I need it. And again, it's because it's pulled that out of history. Okay. All right. So it's going back to my there. And again, folks, this is exactly the same in my accounting module. Okay. So it's the same no matter where you are. It's just a matter of which databases it is. And I hope that we're going to see everybody at our event, or folks tomorrow at our event on merging, because, maybe not everybody, because it may only apply to some of you. But that, folks, is where we are going to leave this topic for today.